Hello, Concept Art 2. It is your instructor here. And today we're going to look at some more techniques for ideation to help you guys in the process of creating your final pieces and different things like that. Happy first day of December. As you can see, I'm in my festive hat over here. And I just wanted to, hopefully you guys wish you guys a happy holidays in general, and hopefully you guys did have a great Thanksgiving. Hope you've gotten the tryptophan out of your system now and you're ready to get back to work. All right, so I wanted to just kind of give you guys some other ideas on how to ideate some of the characters, pieces that you guys might have. So we've focused a lot on, kind of hard surface props and things like that. And I just wanted to give you guys a way to create some characters and using a program like ZBrush. And if you don't have ZBrush, there's also a program like Sculptris, which is free. And a lot of digital art and artists have been utilizing 3D for a long time now, and it's part of their kind of work process. And now I wanted to show you guys a technique or techniques that I've used in the past to generate my own ideas and different things like that. All right, so let's dive right in. All right, let's dive in. All right, so I'm here in ZBrush, and the first thing I'm going to do in my ZBrush, if you are not familiar with ZBrush, it's a sculpting program, and you use it to either make the base, the final sculpt, or anything like that, and then you can even retopologize it in here, texture it in here. You can do the whole process in here. I just want to show you guys how to start some of the process. All right. So what I'm going to use actually is I'm going to use Z-spheres. All right. So if I use Z-spheres, I can then start to use this to create what I need to create. Z-spheres are just a tool. Let me remove the floor. So Z-spheres are a tool you can use to create essentially base meshes. And a base mesh is just the lowest form of anything you're trying to sculpt. And then you can then start to sculpt on top of it, add more geometry to it, and then render it out, bring it into a package like Photoshop or Corel Paint or Procreate, and then do maybe line work over it, a little texture work over it. It speeds up the flow of the work that you're doing and lets you kind of ideate pretty quickly. All right. So first things first, let's create, let's just start creating some pieces to this. All right, so I'm just going to use it like that, and then I'm going to get my move tool, maybe something like so. Okay. And what I like to do a lot of the times is I like to gather a bunch of reference together, and then I'll like amalgamate based on the reference that I have to create what I'm trying to create. All right. So, this may be, an interesting character base right here. Maybe we do, maybe this is like a character with horns. All right. And then maybe we can draw one more. Right, and then we'll draw another piece right here, maybe a piece right here, and right here, and then I'm going to go back to my move tool. All right. Use this to move this around a little bit. All right. And then I'll use this to draw maybe like the neck. All right, do another piece here. This would be like the shoulder blades. Move these guys like that. All right, so I'm just gonna use this to create kind of like a bust for the character, and then maybe draw another piece right here. And I've got my symmetry mode on, so anything I do on one side, it does it to the other. All right. So maybe this is my character right here. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into my either my unified skins or adaptive skin, and I'm going to test out which one that I like. So I'm going to actually go to adaptive and I'm going to preview it. All right, so this is kind of what it looks like. So if I preview it, this is what a mesh would look like on top of my character bust over here. All right, which is not bad. I dig it. All right, so let's actually I'm going to turn off preview again, and I want to make this maybe make an even smaller kind of piece to it. And the current art that I'm looking at is by one of my good friends. His name is Daniel Pittner. He doesn't really do creatures anymore, but the stuff that he did in the past is really freaking awesome. And I've gotten to work with him on a comic book that we kind of started and never really finished, but he's just such a good artist that, you know, it's really nice to be able to pull from people that you know. So yeah, let's look at the preview of the adaptive skin. All right, that's not bad. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make this an adaptive skin, and what that does is now I have this piece in here. So now what I can do is now I can start to draw all over my character here. All right, so this is like my character bust that I've got here. So now I'm just going to start throwing in some features, right? Throwing in some features, and I'm just using the standard brush right now. Right, just to get my forms, my simple forms in here, right? Just getting my simple forms in here, right? And then maybe kind of like a skull shape, shift to smooth it out, all right? All right, and then the mouth is over here. All right, as you guys can see, it's super rudimentary. All right, maybe shift to smooth this out. That's too much. Just gonna shift, increase the size, shift to smooth. B, M, and V, that's the move tool. All right, I can use the move tool to move some of these pieces in. I might want to sharpen this so it looks more like a blade or something like that. All right. So I'm using my move tool now to kind of move some of these pieces into place, right? Let's make this guy a little angrier. All right. Just gonna turn the silhouette here so that we can then get some of these pieces and stuff in place. I'm gonna shift to smooth this guy out a little bit more. All right, it's gonna be kind of like a creature. So I'm gonna go BCB. That's the build up tool, and then I'm gonna use this to start building up. And my intensity is a little too high, so I'm just gonna use this to kind of start building up some forms for this guy. All right. All right. And you can really start to build different ideas, and you can really start to build interesting characters just by, just start building up on some of these shapes, and you're going to get happy accidents and things like that. And that's the beauty of this stuff that we do is, you're trying to find the happy medium of stuff. All right. And then if this is the mouth, let's do BMV again. That's the move tool, right? And then I'm just going to pull out this kind of mouth shape. His mouth doesn't look too menacing right now, so I might want to pull out his chin a little bit. Let's get a little bit of a chin jut out here. There we go. There we go. Maybe smooth it out a little bit, then pull it back out. There we go. Now we're getting a little bit more of our chin jut going on. Okay, I'm gonna kind of pull these down a little bit so he's more kind of skeletal looking. All right. And then BCB again. I've got my clay buildup back on. All right, and these are really quick. These are supposed to be really quick sketches, right? And I'm using this just to show you guys that there's just so many ways to skin a cat. I don't know who wants to skin a cat, but maybe Cruella de Vil's cousin. Yeah, I don't know, but apparently we skin cats, and there's a lot of different ways to do it. So that's where that saying comes from. All right, so I'm just using this to kind of do some interesting shapes here. All right, I'll probably smooth this all out eventually, but you know, it's just all right. Here we go. Boom, like so. Right, and I'm just trying to get some of these interesting features in here while retaining some of my own kind of ideas and my ideation. I don't want to give him a nose. He's gonna have kind of like this hollow, like almost like an Arrancar mask. If you've ever seen Bleach before, that's kind of, you know, maybe that's kind of part of my motivation. And I take a lot from a lot of the animes and the shows and stuff that I watch, and that gives me a lot of ideas. All right. Maybe he's got some sinew, right? Some muscle and stuff that attaches, and you know. Alright, maybe he's kind of like horned. He's got some horn. It's almost like a Twi'lek. If you know what a Twi'lek is, it's from Star Wars. It's the tail heads, and some of them have these. The tails on their head. They're called lekus. So yeah, that's my random nerd fact of the day. So, you know, turning on and off perspective to see what it kind of looks like. And then maybe BDS, that's my Damien standard tool. And what that does is makes kind of sharp edges. So if I want, I'm going to kind of make this kind of like a sharper piece for the horn. Right? And then BCB again. And then we'll maybe flatten this out a little bit. Right, and like I said, it's just ideation right now. This is just all ideation. Okay, BMV. Let's pull our skull out a little bit more. All right, and the cool thing is there's this little guy here, so you can even use this guy as reference to, to kind of help you along the way. All right, and then maybe start pushing and pulling, right? And as you guys can see, as I'm pushing and pulling the mesh, right, I'm getting more interesting ideas. More things are going on in here, right? So now I'm just using these techniques to BFA. This is my flatten tool, right? And I can use this to kind of flatten some of these areas right here. So I'm getting more of a flatter, right? That flatter shape that I kind of want. Right, so like I said, I always start with kind of like a reference. BMV, again, I'm going to use this to move this piece out to make this a little more sharp, right? And as you guys can see, we're starting to get some interesting things happening, right? A lot of some interesting shapes, right, happening if we're creating like a monster, and you can develop a lot of these so quickly, right? All right, so the next thing I want to do is maybe add some eyeballs in the socket, right? And what that allows me to do is then it allows whenever I'm sculpting, it'll sculpt the eyes around it. So I'm just gonna go to my append tool, append a sphere. Right, I'm gonna grab my sphere. I clicked Alt to click on it. I Alt clicked it, and then I can move it. I'm gonna just scale it down a little bit, and then I'm gonna move it in place. Right, and this is how you add like accessories and things to your sculpts, and And I didn't want to show you guys this stuff in the beginning of class because I wanted you guys really to focus on just the not the sculpting or the 3D part of it. And I want you guys to really focus on working on your stuff drawing wise, and then use this as an accent to what you guys can do, right? Like this should be part of your process and not the entire process, right? This should be a supplement to your design and have it aid your design and not be your design. All right, I'm gonna go back here and I'm gonna go to my Z plugins, and there's a subtool master here, and what this can allow me to do is this is subtool master. I want to mirror this guy, so boop, mirror on the x-axis, say okay, and boom, just like that, I've got my eyes in place. And I can still, if I want to, I'm gonna merge this down. So I'm gonna go to merge, I'm gonna merge down. I could have done that whole process inside of Subtool Master, but I didn't, but that's fine. All right, so now whenever I start to sculpt, push, pull this mesh around, right, you can see that it still is affected by this sphere now. So now we've got our eyeballs in place, right? And now I'm just going in and just creating some more interesting shapes here. So I've got back to my clay buildup tool, and then I'm using this to kind of create more interesting things happening here. So I'm gonna go BDS, and I can use my Damien Standard tool here to start carving into my shapes, and I can probably turn it down quite a bit because it's doing a little too much. It's doing a little too much action. All right. So now I can use this to kind of carve into some of these shapes, some of these happy accidents that I'm getting over here. All right, and I can even use this to do or plan out some of my interesting design that I want to do, right? So if I want to start to, do some interesting things here, I can do BCB now, and then use that to kind of follow this line. And it's up to you, right? I just want to show you guys that these techniques exist, right? This is, these are things that people will use and do, and I don't want you guys to ever feel like I didn't show you an aspect of digital painting or digital design that you guys have been exposed to all of it now, and really it is up to you guys to start picking these up and taking them as far as you can go, and then practice. The more you practice, the better you'll get at this stuff, right? The more you practice, the better you'll get, right? So keep practicing away. Don't be afraid to attack anything. And if you guys have any questions about any of this kind of workflow, right, you can ask me. I don't mind sharing tools, tips, right? And I haven't done anything other than this is vanilla ZBrush. I'm not using, in a lot of my classes, I try not to use a lot of plugins, like the Z plugins right here. They come with ZBrush, right? I haven't installed anything or alphas or anything like that, because a lot of that stuff can be misleading whenever it comes to art, right? Where you see an artwork and you're like, oh man, how'd this guy do it? And he's downloaded a bunch of plugins and a bunch of nonsense, and he's using that instead of so this is just creativity, just building up using clay, right? Clay. And now maybe I want to go back down here right. I'm gonna BFA, that's my flatten tool. I just want to flatten some of this stuff back down, flatten it out. All right, maybe flatten some of this out too. I'm gonna BMV, that's my move tool. All right. And I can use my move tool here too, because I want to kind of pull, this is our shoulder blade right here. I can use this to just pull it out. And you can see that I don't really care about this is the point where I don't care about how the geometry looks, right? This is about the artistry. This is about like just getting that shape in there, right? Basic shapes, big forms, big movement, right? We're ideating. This is ideas, right? So this is just a simple character. Because I do have the ability to kind of start to retopologize and fix the mesh if I need to. And let's make the neck in this base a little bit wider, right? Shift to smooth it out a little bit. I'm not an animal. But you know. Right, and I'm just kind of using what I got. Go BCB again. Clay buildup, just build up a little more here. Build up a little more there. All right, and as you guys can see, I'm just using it to get some broad general shapes out there, right? To see what I can really start to affect. All right, so now I'm gonna go BMV again. So do I like something like this, where, you know, he's got kind of like almost like he is armor, his body is armor too, right? Just following this kind of shape language that I kind of started over here, right? Kind of menacing looking, right? I've got a lot of angles in it, right? I might start, you know, right? This is when pushing and pulling and, you know. All right, big moves, big changes, checking the silhouette, right? Right, and as you guys can see, if you look up here, you can see the silhouette value. Very angry, right? Kind of almost, you know, like a demon that would work for Sauron or something like that. You know, this is how you do stuff like that. BCB, right? Now I can go back in. Right, using this guy again. Using this to kind of build up some more interesting shapes in this bad boy. All right. BMV. Use this to kind of move this, right? Let's maybe pull this into a point a little bit. Maybe smooth this out a little bit. BDS, that's our Damien standard tool right there, and I'm using it to kind of cut into our shapes. And you guys can see that this is very low geo, right? The geometry is relatively low, and then I can start to then go up in subdivision, which just means I'm going to smooth it out a little bit more using the computer's algorithm, right? And then when I do that, you'll get more resolution into our image, right? So I'm just using this to kind of draw in some more interesting features, right? You know, the fun thing about this stuff is, like, for me, this is kind of therapeutic. It's relaxing. I'm getting to see shapes and feel what's going on and kind of pull things out of thin air and see how all of this will work, right? And then I can even use this to start to maybe ideate something. And the beauty about all of this is that symmetry is your friend. Symmetry is your friend when you're doing kind of ideas like this, right? And okay, what's happening is, let me show, because everybody's like, oh, okay, why is he stopping? What happens is there's a lot of breakdown into geometry because of how I pushed it and pulled it. You can see that the geometry isn't even. What you want is kind of like quad shapes going on all over. The colors that you're seeing they're called polygroups. The computer's grouping different different pieces of it together based on either what I'm sculpting. Originally, it's based on the Z-spheres that I make. Each Z-sphere has its own polygroup. I can redo my polygroups however I want. All right, so that's never going to be a problem. All right, so what I can do now is if I'm having issues with my geometry that's not letting me kind of do what I wanted to do, like there, I can go back into my geometry. I can go into my Z remesher or Dynamesh. I prefer Z remesher when you're starting off like this. I'm going to say maybe double it, and then I'm going to Z remesh it and see what this mesh does. Give it a second. As you can see on the top, it's calculating, it's doing its brain thinking thing. Hopefully it doesn't crash. Right, so let's see what it does. All right, so now it's Z-remeshed our entire thing. It looks a little smoother, but you can see that it got rid of all of our polygroups, but it's giving us more of a quad topology going on here. So now I can go in and you can see that whenever I start doing my cutting again with my Damien standard tool, well, we're not having those same issues again. So now I can go back in, right, and then do some more of my sculpting. All right, so now we've kind of got this guy looking cool, and this is, you know, this is a good spot to stop, right? You can definitely stop here and do some renders that you can then bring into like Photoshop or something like that, right? To then, so like, and another thing you can start to do is look at what materials look cool to render him out of. Right, let's see this red reflective material, interesting. All right, let's do this kind of sketchy material here, and if I do a BPR render, you'll kind of see what it looks like. All right, so let's go to our let's go to our skin shade material. Let's do BPR render here. All right. So what you see is it's smoothed out all of these, and it's kind of made these my new polygroup. So I'm just going back in and kind of redefining some of those lines again, right? Redefining some of these. All right, and I just kind of wanted to show you guys a quick process. Like I can probably crack out a bunch of these in like 30 minutes, right? Different shapes, orientations, different sizes, different types of monsters, right? Really quickly if I'm trying to ideate something. If I'm trying to get the idea out, like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think, director? What do you think? How do you like this guy? You know, do you want me to remove the horns, put the horns somewhere else, right? But you're still getting to do all of this inside of 3D a little bit, so then, you know, it kind of gives you a good head start. All right. And if you are interested in sculpting and things like that, I will be teaching a sculpting class next semester where I go more in depth into subjects and topics like this, how to create monsters and different things like that, right? BCB, and then we can use that to create some of the body, right? Maybe using this to kind of give myself some ideas, right? Right, you got the how this connects, right? Right. All right, as you guys see, I'm going super fast, right? I just want to kind of get the point across to you guys, right? Like the things that you guys can do with a lot of this stuff, right? Right. When you start to ideate, all the time, some of this stuff kind of becomes like second nature. Like, if, you'll find your own tendencies, you'll find your own, your own kind of style, right? Like, first you usually start with doing things from people you like, right? And then from then on, you'll start to kind of get your own kind of style, your own. And right now, as you guys can see, I'm just vamping, like just kind of going with the flow, letting the ideas come as they do, and then letting some go that don't really make sense, right? Right, and the most fun thing to really kind of create in a lot of the stuff for me is always monsters, like because you get to kind of use your imagination, use your, the monsters you've seen or things that have inspired you over the past or scared the shit out of you. Like there's certain things that scare people a lot, right? Like there's people who are scared of like a lot of holes. It's called, what is it, agoraphobia? I don't know. I can't remember. But there's people who are scared of like too many holes, like things that are like that look kind of like this, where it's like the holes are too close together. I can't remember what it's called, but there's a name for it. Where you don't like to see things like that, and it's very, very unsettling to people, and you can kind of use that in some of your design, and you're just building off of like everything that you know and see and have learned, and which is why it's good to have different experiences in life, right? Which is why watch a bunch of movies, go out a bunch, go to theme parks, go to just living life in general is usually a really good way to get better at art, because you're studying life, right? If you stayed in your basement or your house 24/7 and you don't go out and experience stuff and live and get your hands a little dirty, you'll never build up that knowledge base, that data bank. Like you can look at stuff all day long, but then your stuff becomes kind of derivative, right? But if you start to go outside and experience things and experience different art, go to museums, right? Like study different people, you'll start to get that knowledge base of art for yourself. All right? So this is kind of like the base of it. All right. And then BMV. So like now, like I like what I see. Let me just then, boom. Let me start messing with some of these shapes and see what looks more menacing. All right, what looks more unsettling. What looks more like scary. Like if you saw this guy in your nightmare, or you saw this guy walking up to you, you'd be like, pass. Let me cross. Let me cross the road. Let me get to the other side of the street real quick, like quick like a bunny. Quick like a bunny. All right. Maybe can start to mess with different things like that. And then if I like what I got so far, let's go to my subtools here. I can then paint. Let's see, maybe I want to give it some. I'm just going to do. Just going to, instead of add material RGB, whoops, BCB, let's just go MRGB. MRGB stands for the material, and then the RGB is the color. RGB is just the color, M is just the material. So I can then paint into it. So let's go. And then now if I change it back, all right, you can see that now I've got just that. All right, so now if I do my BPR render, got something that looks kind of interesting like that. All right, so I just created a pretty cool monster in like 30 minutes, right? I could, you know, if I was in the studio, I'd probably create like 5 or 6 of these, turn them into the director or whoever it is, and then say, hey, which one do you like? What are we feeling? You know, and then we'd move on, go to the next stages. So like I, you know, go here, render. Let's do best. This gives me a little more shadows, but let's just do BPR render, and then you can render passes right here. So this is a composite of it. All right, let's give it a second. Hopefully it doesn't crash. If it crashes, well, you guys got the lesson either way. There we go. All right, so it's gonna ask me to save it. I'm just gonna save it to my desktop for now. Save. Okay. Now let's see if it saved it properly. Yes, it did. All right, so I've saved this out. Also, when it renders out all of these passes. So I can save the BPR shaded like that. So that gives me like a black background. Render it again, and then this is like a depth map. This is a shadow map, and this is a mask. So I'll render out the mask as well. So boom, render the shadows. The depth is if I'm compositing it together, right? Like it's like the final render, and I want to add like a depth pass to it. I would save it out, but I usually don't need it. So what I'll do now is I'll just bring some of these guys into Photoshop. So now I've got this guy in Photoshop, and I can bring in the composite as well. Unlock this bad boy. Hit enter. Okay, this is the mask. The cool thing about the mask is if I, you know, it's crazy how Photoshop has gotten so crazy these days. So like a lot of times now, you know, AI will do a lot of that work for you. So it's not really as necessary as it was before. So if I just do that and then I hit this mask button, it'll mask out my character for me, right? And then you can start to do your paint overs or whatever. So if I want to go in here, I can start doing, you know, let's go in here and then There we go. That's what I kind of want. So I want a tail at the end of my stuff. So now I can start to really, let's do, let's go. Maybe I'll paint with a gradient, right? So let's do paint. Ooh. Actually, let's do boom, gradient. Instead of the classic one, let's do some either purples or reds. I'll do either purples for this guy or reds. Here we go. I like this guy. Let's do a linear. There we go. And then I can use the mask again, right? Go W on my mask. Let's just do the magic wand, like so. And then I can use this to boop, just like that. And then I can set the blending mode to something interesting. Why is it not doing the thing I usually do? Usually I start and like, ugh, I hate this sometimes. So I guess I'll have to scroll like a pleb until I find some. Ooh, hard light isn't bad. Screen's too soft. Multiply is okay if I do like if I reduce the opacity. Okay, so it might just be multiply, and then I can reduce the opacity there. What's this overlay do? No. Yeah, I think I prefer hard light. Alright. So now I can hit B, Alt, and then I can start to paint some of this stuff up. Right, because it's giving us, I don't know. Whoa. I don't want to paint on that layer. I want to paint on a new layer. So I'm just going to use that as and we're just using this as our kind of like our base, right? And then we can use this to just start enhancing our image. And you can use this to kind of accentuate some of these crevices that you have. Or, well, I do have a shadow map that I rendered. All right. I'll show you guys what I'm going to do with some of this stuff. Right, the idea is you guys see, you know, where this is going. You're using this to accentuate some of these shadow areas, and it looks a little more painterly when you do it like this. All right, and not so machined. So sometimes I, you know, maybe I can put, just make these a little darker, these pits. I'm trying to go this pretty fast, right? Just so I can show you guys some of this, some of these techniques that you guys can use to kind of emphasize on your stuff. So I've got this stuff. Then I can either start to reduce the opacity. I'm gonna duplicate it actually. I'm gonna hit it with the filter, blur, do a Gaussian blur, and then I'm gonna reduce it quite a bit. Because what I wanted to do is I want it to be part of like the crevice, right? It's gonna be there, but it's not gonna be too emphasized. So I can add that mask back, increase this, and then I'm just gonna remove some of it so it looks more natural, right? You can see what I'm getting at is it's emphasizing the crevices, but it's making it look like it's emphasized in a natural way, right? And that's the idea. Right. So I'm just adding a little bit more shade, a little bit more shadow to it, giving it a little bit more life. Right, we started off with that. And I can even do that if I wanted to, and then reduce this quite a bit as well. Do the same. See, this one doesn't have a blur on it, but I can still use it for our purposes. Our porpoises. Alright. So another thing is, you know, while you're ideating, right, which is what we're doing, we're just putting ideas down. I'm going to go back here. Maybe I didn't like, you know, what these turned out to be, and I want to kind of make them into more like eyes or something on him. Or I can start to do that with some of this stuff. Even add more where there isn't any. And then go back over here and then find my light color, something that's light in our colors, in our color palette, and then just start adding some of these interesting shapes. Okay, I like this add. Right. So now we're doing a little more, right? And then I can even go back in and just start adding. Just adding some more of these features here. Just adding a little more to the unease of the character, the kind of the repulsive nature of his being. And you guys can see now I'm just using part of my color palette, right, to accentuate some of what's going on here. Right? So you can start to really, right, start it here, right here. All right, and the cool thing is, because I have this, let me switch to another material, like maybe let's do something reflective, like so. BPR render. Then I'm gonna go back to my render again. Do my composite, and then let's do shine. Hit OK, and then I can bring this guy back in here. So right? And it really gives me the option. Let's go here to our mask, select our mask once again, right? And then BPR, and then we can really then start using this guy. Start getting kind of like a graphic look for our character, and then reduce it a little bit. Right, so you can really start to take this stuff really far, really quickly, with just a few renders and pieces and stuff like that. And I can Control G, I'll group those together. Oh, oops, cancel. Let's duplicate it. Let's merge this group together. So now I've got something like this. And that's kind of, you know, let's do a gradient. I kind of like that. The only thing I might add is let's go B. All right. Ooh. Let's see what, now I'm just experimenting and see what the hell this does. I was just going to add a little more texture to it, but I think this is fine to kind of demonstrate what I was trying to demonstrate to you guys. So yeah, so this is, you know, introducing a little digital clay to your process, and you know, you can definitely pick and choose what you want to use from this, and leave what you don't. If you want to any more instruction or questions about this, just let me know. Feel free to shoot me an email or message or Brightspace or ping or email. I think I already said that, but yeah, it's Ty. This is the Concept Art 2 last couple of weeks of class, and yeah, I look forward to seeing and hearing from you guys as to what you guys can do. All right, have a good one, guys.